My name is Michael Foster, and this is the story of how betrayal became my greatest advantage. In business, just like in family, the people you trust the most can be the ones sharpening the knife behind your back, but they often forget to check what's beneath their own feet before they push you off the edge. Let's go back to where it all started. 15 years ago, Foster Technologies wasn't a $100 million powerhouse. It was a struggling IT consulting firm, one my father had built from scratch. He was a genius with technology but hopeless with finances, and by 2010, we were 3 months from bankruptcy. The stress was breaking him, and so was his health. I was 25, fresh out of business school. My older brother, James, was 30 and more invested in bottle service than balance sheets. Dad always favored James, the golden child who could charm anyone, but charm didn't pay the bills, and his reckless spending had already cost the company major clients. I'll never forget that rainy Tuesday when I found Dad slumped over his desk, staring at the financial reports with tears in his eyes. "It's over, Michael," he whispered. "Everything I built, it's gone." Something inside me snapped. I couldn't stand by and watch my father's dream collapse, even if he had always seen me as second best. While James burned through company money in exclusive clubs, I worked 18-hour days. I met every client, reviewed every contract, and rebuilt the business from the ground up. Mom worried. "Michael, you need to rest," she'd say, bringing me dinner at midnight. "You can't do this alone." But I did. The first year was brutal. I renegotiated debts, slashed unnecessary expenses, including James's entertainment budget, and personally reached out to every client we'd lost. Many slammed doors in my face, but I kept knocking. Persistence pays off. By the end of the year, we were breaking even. James, of course, found it hilarious. "Look at little Mikey, playing businessman," he'd mock. "Dad's still going to put me in charge. I'm the oldest." I ignored him. Over the next 5 years, I transformed Foster Technologies. We evolved from a basic IT consulting firm into a full-service digital powerhouse, offering proprietary software solutions and cloud services. Revenue soared from $2 million to $10 million, then $50 million, and last year, we crossed $100 million. Our team grew from 20 to over 500. We expanded into 3 countries. Dad's health improved, but his favoritism never changed. At family dinners, he'd praise James's leadership while I silently analyzed quarterly reports. I didn't care about recognition, I cared about the company. But I also had my own plans. For years, I quietly documented everything, every client James lost, every reckless decision he made, every dollar he wasted. More importantly, I had secured something invaluable: ownership. When the company was drowning, I had invested my own savings and taken out personal loans to keep us afloat. In exchange, I had acquired 40% of Foster Technologies, buried deep in corporate paperwork. My stake was legally untouchable. Or so I thought. Last month, everything changed. Dad announced his retirement, and everyone assumed I would take over. Even James had started showing up at the office, sensing the shift. At the shareholders meeting, I was prepared. I had a 5-year growth strategy and the numbers to back it up. Then Dad stood up. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "choosing my successor wasn't easy, but there is only one person who truly embodies the leadership needed to take Foster Technologies into the future." I straightened in my chair, ready for the responsibility I had spent years preparing for. "My son, James Foster, will be taking over as CEO, effective immediately." The room fell silent. It felt like a punch to the gut. But Dad wasn't done. "Furthermore," he continued, "James has brought some concerning irregularities to my attention. It appears that certain individuals have been making unauthorized decisions that could compromise our integrity." James stood up, holding a folder. "I'm afraid my brother, Michael, has been overstepping his authority, making reckless promises, and engaging in questionable business practices." Every accusation was a twisted version of the truth. The very decisions that had saved the company were now being framed as reckless. As my final act as CEO, Dad declared, "I'm terminating Michael's employment, effective immediately." Security guards moved toward me. James smirked. "Sorry it had to end this way, little brother. Maybe now you'll get a life outside the office." I was escorted out, my access revoked, my key card deactivated. I could see pity in some faces, smug satisfaction in others. But they had no idea what was coming. Because while James had spent years plotting my downfall, he had overlooked three crucial things. First, every decision I made was legally documented. Second, my 40% ownership stake wasn't as hidden as they thought. And third, well, let's just say, the real fight was only beginning. That's the thing, when you spend a decade building a company's technology infrastructure, you learn exactly where the bodies are buried. Sometimes literally. As I walked to my car that evening, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to an old friend at the SEC, then I went home and waited. Monday morning was going to be interesting. Monday morning, a thunderstorm rolled in, fitting weather for what was about to unfold. I sat in my home office, sipping coffee as the clock ticked toward 9 a.m., the moment James would stroll into my office for the first time as CEO. The weekend had been eventful. Mom had called 17 times, leaving tearful voicemails about family unity. Dad hadn't called at all. James, too busy celebrating at his favorite clubs. The photos were all over social media, including some very questionable ones, with the company credit card clearly visible on the table. I smiled. James always thought technology was beneath him. That's geek stuff, he'd say, refusing to learn even basic cybersecurity. Well, that arrogance was about to cost him. At exactly 9:15 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, my former executive assistant, whom James hadn't bothered to fire, probably because he assumed she was just there to bring coffee. It's starting. I opened my laptop and connected to Foster Technologies' internal security feed. Yes, I still had access. When you build a system from the ground up, you always leave yourself a back door. The show begins. The camera feed showed James entering my office, coffee in hand, ready to begin his reign. He sank into the leather chair, my chair, and pressed the power button on his computer. That's when the show began. Instead of the standard login screen, a video started playing. Security footage, from 3 years ago. James, sitting in this very office, cutting a deal with our biggest competitor. Of course I can get you their information, his voice rang out, clear as day. My idiot brother does all the work anyway, just make sure the payment goes to my Cayman account. James scrambled, slamming keys, trying to shut it off. The video kept playing, on every screen in his office. But that was just the beginning. The collapse. His phone started buzzing. The SEC had received an anonymous tip about insider trading, complete with years of documented evidence. His private email was lighting up, board members demanding an emergency meeting after receiving, quite conveniently, a set of leaked confidential communications outlining James's creative financial practices. Down in the lobby, federal agents were walking through the front door. I watched through the security feed as James's face shifted from confusion to panic. He grabbed his phone. Tried calling Dad. But Dad's phone was busy, probably because he was getting his own set of unpleasant revelations about his beloved firstborn. At 9:30 a.m., Sarah walked into James's office. "Mr. Foster," she said, cool and professional, "the board has called an emergency meeting. Also, there are some federal agents here to see you." James's face drained of color. "Tell them I'm busy, cancel everything, and get IT up here to fix these damn computers." Sarah just smiled. "I'm afraid that won't be possible." She placed a folder on his desk. "The entire IT department just resigned." James blinked. "They can't do that, we have contracts." Sarah tilted her head. "Actually," she said, "their contracts were with a subsidiary company that holds all our intellectual property rights, a company that, as of this morning, is no longer affiliated with Foster Technologies." James yanked open the folder. Inside was a single document, outlining the ownership structure of Foster Innovation Labs. The subsidiary I had quietly built years ago. The one that legally owned all of our patents, software, and client contracts. And the one I owned 100% of. Checkmate. But the clients," James stammered, "have already signed new contracts," Sarah finished, "directly with Foster Innovation Labs. Turns out they prefer working with the person who actually handled their accounts all these years." James gripped the desk like a drowning man reaching for a life raft. Everything that made Foster Technologies valuable, its technology, its clients, its people, was mine. James had stolen an empty shell. The office door swung open again. 2 FBI agents stepped inside, flanked by Mr. Patterson, our chief legal counsel. "James Foster," one of the agents said. "We have some questions regarding certain financial transactions." James's eyes darted wildly. "You can't do this," he shouted. "I'm the CEO." The agent took out a pair of handcuffs. "Not anymore. I'm in charge here." Mr. Patterson cleared his throat. "Actually, about that." He slid a folder onto the desk. "The board just held an emergency meeting. Given the circumstances, they voted to remove you as CEO, effective immediately." James's face turned scarlet. "They can't do that. You own shares in Foster Technologies," Patterson corrected. "A company that, as of 9 o'clock this morning, has no intellectual property, no major clients, and no core development team. I believe the stock price reflects that reality." James lunged for his computer, probably to check the ticker. But of course, his screen was still playing videos, footage of his various crimes, projected in high definition. By the time federal agents escorted him out, his designer suit was rumpled, his face ashen. I sent one final company-wide email from my remote access. Subject: a choice. You have a choice: stay with a sinking ship or join us at Foster Innovation Labs, where innovation and integrity actually mean something. Your jobs are secure, your benefits will be better, and, most importantly, your hard work will be respected. Within an hour, 90% of the staff had accepted. But my revenge wasn't complete yet. There was still the matter of dear old Dad's retirement fund. The fallout. It was spectacular. Within 24 hours, Foster Technologies stock had cratered 70%. The headlines were everywhere. Tech CEO arrested on multiple fraud charges. Foster Technologies in freefall as scandal erupts. But I wasn't done. 3 days later, I sat in my new office at Foster Innovation Labs, a sleek, modern building I had quietly purchased 6 months ago. Sarah walked in, followed by a familiar face. "Mr. Goldman. Dad's financial advisor." "He's been calling nonstop," Goldman said, shifting uncomfortably, "ever since he realized his retirement fund is worthless." I leaned back. "Because he invested everything in Foster Technologies stock," I finished for him. Dad had always bragged about having skin in the game. He ignored every warning about diversification. Now, those shares were worth pennies. "Your father is desperate," Goldman continued. "Your mother, she's worried they might lose the house." I considered that for a moment. Then I smiled. "Set up a meeting, tomorrow, 10 a.m., here." A family meeting. The next morning, my parents arrived. Mom looked like she'd been crying. Dad looked like he'd aged 10 years in a week. They sat across from me in the same model visitor chairs he used to make me sit in while lecturing me about real leadership. Dad cleared his throat, his voice shook. "Son, I know I made mistakes," I cut in. I leaned forward. "You helped James cover up evidence. You turned a blind eye while he embezzled company funds. You were complicit in fraud that hurt our employees, our clients, and our shareholders." "I didn't know." "You knew," I said, coldly. "You just didn't care, because James was your golden boy, and I was just the backup plan." Mom sniffled. I handed her a tissue. "But that's not why you're here. You're here because you're broke." Dad sagged. "Michael, please, we're family." I let out a dry laugh. "Was I family when you let James take credit for my work? Was I family when you fired me in front of the entire company?" I slid a folder across the desk. "Here's what's going to happen. Foster Innovation Labs will buy back your shares, at their original purchase price." Their eyes widened with hope. "You sign an NDA, you never speak about James's activities again. You retire, quietly, take that Florida house you always dreamed about. You stay out of my business, completely." Mom swallowed hard. "You'll do that for us?" "Not for you," I said. "For the scared 12-year-old boy who once believed his father hung the moon. He deserved better." Dad hesitated. "There's one more thing. The money comes with a trustee, someone to make sure Dad doesn't gamble it away on another one of James's brilliant ideas. Monthly allowance, investment restrictions, the works." Dad's jaw tightened. "You don't trust us?" I smiled. "You taught me that lesson very well." They signed the papers. As security escorted them out, Dad turned one last time. "I was wrong about you, son. You're a better businessman than I ever was." I met his gaze. "No, Dad," I said, "I'm just better at remembering who my real enemies are." 5 years later, a lot has changed. Foster Innovation Labs is now a billion-dollar company, known for its cutting-edge technology and ethical leadership. James served 2 years in prison. Now, he works as a bartender in Vegas. Mom and Dad live quietly in Florida, sending the occasional postcard. I never answer them. Last week, I received an invitation to speak at my old business school. The topic? The importance of integrity in family business. I accepted. After all, I have quite a story to tell. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building something so successful that they have to live with the knowledge that they bet on the wrong horse. And as for those who wonder how the quiet one, the careful one, the backup plan, pulled off such a complete victory? Well, while the peacocks are busy showing off their feathers, the eagles are watching, waiting, planning their next move. Because in business, just like in life, it's not about who starts at the top. It's about who's still standing when the dust settles.